So as part of the CA, I've also been involved in content development. So the capstone module, I worked on that for a bit. And also I am a previous exam marker. So in terms of writing questions for CA and marking questions for CA, I'm very familiar with that. So I've actually worked with bingo training for almost 2 years now. The program is really designed to help people like yourselves sort of pass the module more efficiently so that you spend less time, and to ensure that your preparation is more on the mark. And we focus quite heavily on final exam preparation and how to write the best answers. So with that introduction done, let me just quickly go through the MAAF module. So this module is effectively broken into 2 different categories, like broad categories. The first category is focused on business performance. Okay, so you're learning things like what is the organization strategy? How do you measure business performance? Okay, how do you measure business performance? What are the various ways in which companies plan, how they benchmark, and other parts of looking at their financial performance. So you'd be required to calculate, for example, a number of ratios about how companies, how profitable they are, their activity, etc., etc. Okay, so that's really one part of the module. Okay, now in terms of the second part of the module, it becomes more like a corporate finance type of, has more of that sort of corporate finance type of feel, but it doesn't really go into the theory behind corporate finance. It probably looks at corporate finance in more of a sort of practical sense. So the key areas that you cover for corporate finance would be, for example, understanding what is the company's cost of capital, what are the sources of debt in equity finance, and also looking at investment decisions, such as how do you calculate net present value, a payback period, etc., etc. So this module really brings into sort of those 2 major aspects, which is one, understanding business performance, and then second, about corporate finance. Now, in terms of what you should sort of get through in terms of the module, it's got definitely both this qualitative and quantitative focus. And I would say that the split between quantitative and qualitative is a bit of a half-half. So you definitely need to be in a position where you can apply formulas. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that you'll be required to calculate a number of financial ratios. So you definitely need to be in a position where you can comfortably calculate these financial ratios. Okay. And there are other things that you need to calculate as well, not just financial ratios. So for example, calculate variances for budgets and the like. And then there's going to be a qualitative focus. Okay, so the qualitative focus is more about understanding the major frameworks and the toolkit that you learn throughout the module. So for example, if we just focus, for example, on debt financing, okay, so what are the different sources of debt financing? There's short, there's medium term, there's long term. There are different costs associated with these, with each alternative for debt financing. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. Okay, so a qualitative type of question could look like this, where you're given a case study, and based on the particular information in that case study, it's asking you to write down or recommend what is the best avenue to obtain debt. Okay, so that's quite a nice qualitative question. So you do need to be able to jump between the 2, okay? Now, in terms of, maybe I'll just jump straight into it, which is why do people perform poorly in this subject? Okay, so it is a fairly straightforward subject in the sense that the formulas are not long. Okay, so this is not like some sort of technical module like fin or tax, where you have to follow a range of steps, okay? And all of these steps need to be correct in order for you to get the final answer. So this is not this type of module. And when you think about some of the frameworks that you'll be learning, the frameworks themselves are not difficult in the sense that they're not highly technical frameworks. I mean, these are fairly simple diagrams and simple ideas about how businesses perform. All right. So, for example, one of the frameworks that you'll learn is this idea of Porter's 5 forces. Okay, so what are the 5 forces that shape industry competition? So, with quite a more sort of straightforward sort of material, then why do people still fail? Okay. So, I think that the biggest reason why people fail in this module, certainly the papers that I've looked at and also statistics that the CA have published, is that people fail the module not necessarily because of the quantitative aspect. Okay, so most people are pretty confident in calculating, calculating formulas and putting figures together. But where people really fail is on this qualitative component. Okay, so they simply just write information that is just too generic. Okay, so you have a case study, and then you have all these frameworks that you learn in the module. Okay, so typically what happens in an exam is that the candidate just writes out or repeats information in the CSG, okay, without any consideration to what the case study is. Right now, obviously, that's not going to score you a lot of marks, right? Because the materials that you encounter in the module, okay, they're very generic. Okay, it's for a general set of circumstances. However, the materials, well, the question that you see in the final exam paper, it is very, very specific. Okay, it has a very unique situation. So this is why a lot of candidates fail the module, is because they do not apply the frameworks and the toolkit properly. Okay, they just write out some very generic answers. Okay, so the fact that there is actually a case study is actually ignored by a lot of candidates, right? And for you, you're probably thinking this doesn't make sense, right? But this is the biggest reason why people have failed the module. Now, the second point in terms of why people fail the module is because they do not complete all of the questions. Okay, so again, this may seem strange to you, but I'll give you a really good example. So when I was marking management accounting module a few years back, I had all of these answers, right? That was really long. Okay, so this was before this was online. Okay, so people still sat the exam physically. So you would read these answers, right? And they're very, very long. Okay, and you don't really know what the writer is trying to achieve. Okay, or the candidate, what they're trying to achieve. They're saying one thing, but then they say something else. Okay, so another reason why people fail the module is because their written response lacks clarity. Okay, and there's no coherence. Okay, and it's not consistent. So when a question asks you to recommend, for example, the best sources of debt financing, okay, you need to give a recommendation, and that needs to be a firm recommendation. You can't say that, oh, I recommend a term loan, however, a private placement is also good, okay? Like, you can't give a response like that. So if you recommend a term loan, you have to say that I recommend a term loan because of this, and this term loan is actually better than all of the other alternatives. Okay. So the ability to write clearly and to write in a coherent and consistent manner is something that many candidates lack, right? And so really, the module for MAAF, in terms of what we try to do at Bingo Training, is that we want to teach some of this to you in a much more explicit way. Okay, so it's one thing for you to sort of read materials, okay, but it's very different when you apply them. Okay, we'll put them to practice. So a heavy aspect of our particular program, and I'll talk about the program in a second, is that we're going to help you avoid some of these pitfalls, okay, so that we can sharpen your responses from day one. So you don't have to go through a very long journey, okay, for you to understand how you're meant to write an answer. Okay, we're going to focus on writing answers, from the first or second module. And another area in terms of why people perform poorly in math is because when they write, okay, so it's all about qualitative. You can see that this is all about qualitative areas, okay? When they write the response, okay, there lacks logical flow. Okay, so in other words, this coherence aspect, okay? So one part of the module that's really important, okay, is that there is often going to be both a cause and an effect, right? And then some candidates, they get this confused or they get the order wrong. So if A happens, then B should naturally happen. And therefore you get this type of conclusion. Okay, so that's a very, that is a logical response. Okay, so A happens and therefore it impacts B, and therefore this is the insight. Okay, so I'll give you a specific example. Okay, so imagine that the company, okay, has bought a lot of assets. Okay, and the question is asking you to explain why is the return on assets ratio low for the company. Okay, so return on assets, just to put this in context, is equal to net income. Okay, so your profitability divided by total assets. Okay. And the reason why return on assets can fall, okay, is really because of two things, right? So one, your profit falls, or two, you have more assets. Okay, I mean it's a ratio. Okay, and so that ratio can only be impacted by these two factors. And so when candidates write answers, right, they'll write something about profitability, okay, or they'll write something about assets. But the point is that what you're writing is just not clear and to the point. Because what you can say is that, well, if ROA falls, if return on asset falls, it could simply because the entity or the company has purchased more assets. And hence, the ratio is going to fall because you've got more assets and the denominator is higher, and hence that ratio is going to be smaller, okay, even though profit has been unchanged. So what does this say about efficiency? Okay, it says that potentially the company is utilizing more assets than what is needed, and hence it is becoming less efficient. So can you see that in terms of the answer that I just gave, it was very logical, right? It was sequential, right? A happens and then that leads to B, and therefore it leads to the conclusion. Okay. So this may sound very straightforward to you, but I can guarantee you that this is not straightforward for many, many candidates. And so part of the reason why we have developed this program, and I'll just quickly turn to program here, is that we really want to help you enhance your ability to pass the module. Okay, so it's really designed for you so that you can pass the module with fairly minimal effort, okay, or with a much more efficient plan in terms of how you allocate your time. So the module is really designed around two major areas. So first of these is that we need to ensure that you have a pretty good understanding of content, okay, because without content, you're probably not going to be able to do much, right? So part of the module, we focus on content. And in terms of the content, we focus on enhancing your understanding in critical areas, okay, because there are certain units within MAAF that are certainly going to be more important or more popular as a source of final exam questions. So it's important to really understand those modules, okay? And then the second pillar of the program is really designed so that you are in a position to practice questions, okay, or to build your confidence so that you're clear in terms of how you're meant to write a good answer, okay? Or at least we're going to help you go through a range of examples so that you can pinpoint exactly what differentiates a very strong answer compared to just a very regular answer. Okay. So this is really going to be the key component of our program. So we focus on content and we focus on practical application. So we really need to ensure that you have a good understanding of what is required of you for the final exam. Okay, so how can you avoid some of these common pitfalls? Okay, and to be honest, these pitfalls are actually quite easily preventable. Okay, as long as someone tells you what these pitfalls are, okay, you become more aware, and then you practice. Okay, you're gonna find that you can overcome some of these pitfalls quite easily. And so our program also provides you with a lot of continuous support. Okay, so if you write down answers, or you have attempted a question and you want us to give you some feedback in terms of how good your answer is, you can definitely do that. Okay, so we'll be here to help you answer a lot of your queries. So that's going to be really good for you, because as you have questions, you ask questions, you learn from these questions, we provide you with constructive feedback, so that this way, when you attempt the final exam, you're going to be in a position where you don't make some of these mistakes. Okay? And this will help you maximize the marks, and hence maximize your passing rate, okay, or enhance your pass probability. So some of the other areas that we try to incorporate in this program is that we want to keep you disciplined and on track. Okay, so a lot of candidates, they try to leave the module towards the very last step, which is not ideal, okay, because you have to cram a lot of information in a very short period of time, and there's probably not enough time for you to be able to apply feedback that you've received. Okay, so if you're doing something wrong at the sort of the tail end of the program, you're likely to carry some of those mistakes with you when you go into the final exam. But having lessons on a more disciplined and periodic basis is going to ensure that you're going to get continuous feedback, and that you're going to have enough time to rectify or reflect on these, and to demonstrate how you can enhance some of your practices. Okay, so I think being disciplined and keeping you on track is really important. Now, some of these module areas that we encounter in MAAF, there's actually quite a lot of real-world application out there. Okay, so if you think about business environments in today's economy, you'll find that businesses, they compete and competition is very high. Okay, so what we're going to do in this program is going to help you provide a number of real-life examples to some of these sort of frameworks and toolkits that you encounter in the module, so that you can get a sense of what some of these companies are navigating as they are experiencing pretty much very similar issues. Okay, so this is a great way to sort of see how theory can be applied to real life. Okay, so we'll try to bring out more of these areas where we can enhance your critical thinking, so that it's going to help you in your own careers. So in terms of what an indicative timetable for the module looks like, it's really broken into two components. So the first component are known as these interactive study sessions, which goes through a range of content and also selected questions that I've curated myself in terms of getting you to focus on some of these pitfalls and how to overcome them. Okay, so I'm going to curate a set of questions to help you enhance sort of that practical application side. And so these interactive study sessions will total around 12 hours in aggregate, and they'll be spread out over a number of weeks. And you can see that most of these lessons are done on a Saturday, okay, with some done on a Sunday. Now, in terms of our modules, if you are unable to make the session, it's going to be okay, because we have an excellent online platform where each of these sessions will be recorded and then uploaded. Okay, so even if you're not free for these particular times, you can definitely still have access to the materials. And then the second part of this program is going to be focused on exam preparation. Okay, so these exam prep part A and part B, these two workshops are really designed so that we can go through a range of final exam questions. Okay, so to really see the full gamut of the module being applied in sort of like a single setting. Okay, and so we're going to run these exam prep modules well before when you actually have the final exam, which is on the first week of May. Okay, so that's going to give you plenty of time to enhance and solidify your learning. Okay. Now, throughout all of this, okay, we highly recommend you to ask us questions. Because any questions that you may have, you can post it on our learning platform, okay, or you can email us, and we will return a response to you within 24 hours. Okay, so we're definitely going to be here to help you with all of your questions. Okay, so this idea of continuous support is really important, okay, because we think that by having continuous support, you're definitely going to get the most out of it, and you can avoid a lot of these pitfalls. And so our module, both part A and part B, okay, on an aggregate basis, we have a special bundle price, which is $560. And then in an individual basis for the interactive modules, we have that as $350. And for the exam series, we have this as $250. But then I know that today, you know, a morning on a Sunday, and today is Valentine's Day, okay? I'm sure there's plenty of things where you could be spending your time. So what we're going to do is that we're going to offer you a special promotion. So if you contact Bin, who's also in this on this call, in Bin, please feel free to give people your email so that if you don't have Bin's details, you can contact Bin. But we're going to do a special promo today, where if you do decide to sign up, we're going to knock off another 20% off our bundle price. Okay, so we're going to give you a program that maximizes your chances of passing the exam, and also to get a merit if you're really keen on stretching yourself. We're going to offer this to you for around $450. Okay, so it's a special price that we're doing just for you guys because it is Valentine's Day. We do know that there are other things that you want to do as well, but we think that this is a really competitive program for a very reasonable cost, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Okay, so with that, I'm happy to open up for any Q&A. So you can ask me anything about the module, and I'll be able to provide you with a response if I can. So happy to open this to a Q&A. And again, I just want to reiterate that please contact Bin. We are doing a special promotion today just for you guys. So we definitely do want to help you with your CA journey. And I think this is a great program to help you, maximize your time, help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls in terms of where candidates go wrong with respect to the final exam and their preparation. So I hope that you can consider us, and we'll definitely be able to provide a lot of value for yourselves. Okay, so we've been in operation for 2 years. We've got a number of modules that we run. So this is not just a one-off. Okay, so I'll leave my comments here, and then happy to take any questions if you have any. So again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put this in the chat function as well. Okay, so if you don't want to ask the question in person, you can feel free to use the chat. All right. Well, thank you for your attendance today. I know it is a stretch to attend something on a Sunday morning. So when is the last day we can enroll in the program? So you do have quite a lot of flexibility in terms of when you enroll, but the special promo price is really just for today. Okay, so so if you do decide to enroll at a later time, unfortunately, we won't be able to give you that promo, but definitely we will give that promo today. So if you want to contact Bin, who's provided his details in the chat, I highly recommend you do so. So there's a question about why are there case studies in the CSG? And so there are case studies in the CSG mainly just to illustrate and apply some of these more theoretical frameworks and toolkits that you will learn into a more sort of realized, a real life company. I mean, the case study is fictitious in its own right. But the idea here is that you want to not just learn theory, but learn how theory is applied to a particular question. Okay, so that's going to be really important. Okay, so that's why there's a case study in there to help you sort of bridge that gap. Now, in terms of the final exam is not going to have a case study. It's not going to have the same case study because that case study is really long, right? I think it's a couple of pages. And obviously, you're going to have that time in the final exam. So it's going to be a more simplified examples, okay, or a number of simplified case studies that you can demonstrate application of frameworks and toolkits on. Okay, so that's really the purpose behind why there are case studies. So hopefully that has answered your question. All right, well, if there are no further questions, thank you everyone for attending today's session. We really appreciate your participation. Again, feel free to contact Bin in terms of the promo. And if you are interested in registering for the program, do keep also Bin's details as well, as we can also help accommodate further down the track if you need any help as well. So thank you everyone for attending today's session and hope you have a lovely rest of the week. So thank you and goodbye.